All right, here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. We are here Friday, April 10th. Appreciate everybody out there making us a part of your day. Lots of stuff that we need to discuss on today's edition of the show. The Masters is here. The Masters is well underway, and my guy Everett Henry is just having an absolute field day right now. His guy, Rory McIlroy, defending champ, of course, at Augusta National. He posted a very impressive 5 under par yesterday. He will have an afternoon tee time here coming up in a few hours. We will see how the wind fares this afternoon. I think it was fair to say yesterday during the opening round, certainly much more difficult for the players that went out in the afternoon as opposed to the players that went out in the morning, but impressive nonetheless from McIlroy, and he is in the driver's seat after one round, but obviously lots of golf still to be played at Augusta National. Got some superstar players currently out on the course right now. Scotty Scheffler, he posted an impressive 200 par 70. Not many mistakes, only the one bogey. Had some putts that he missed throughout the duration of that round. Made a nice eagle and a birdie early. Lots of pars, typically what you see on a Scotty Scheffler scorecard. But we'll talk a little bit about the Masters. We'll talk a little bit about Augusta as we get ready to turn the page into the weekend. Redlegs lost last night, yesterday afternoon against the Miami Marlins. Not really a competitive baseball game for Cincinnati. They lose 8-1 at the hands of the Marlins. They will be back in action tonight. GABP, and the boy, Chase Burns, is on the mound for the Cincinnati Redlegs. He is off to an unbelievable start this year. See if he can't keep that going. We'll talk a little bit about the Reds. Was on Chatterbox Reds yesterday with Trace. Had some thoughts. We'll talk about some of that stuff a little bit additionally on this show there as well. But good to have the team back in town after obviously a disappointing end of the road trip, but very much a successful road trip as they beat Texas 3 out of 3 and split a 4-game set with the Miami Marlins. Also, we're going to talk about TJ Friedl. Does he need to be moved down the lineup? Right? I'm not going to sit here and say he's some bum that needs to be playing in Louisville. Not what I'm saying whatsoever. I think he's a really good player still. Obviously not off to the greatest start in the world here for the Cincinnati Reds in 2026. I don't see why moving him down in the lineup shouldn't be a possibility for Tito Francona and the Redlegs. We'll talk about that on today's show. Also, a little NBA Rookie of the Year conversation. Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple. Flagg was the favorite for a while. I'm a huge Cooper Flagg guy. I think he's going to be unbelievable. I think he's going to bring championships to Dallas. I truly do believe that. But he's balling out on a team that's clearly tanking for a lottery pick once again, whereas Con Knipple has been a part of a team and a very important player, the second best player on a team that really has transcended the duration of their organization, trajectory of the organization, where they're going here in the playoffs with the Charlotte Hornets. Much of my life, really the entirety of my life, has been just a laughingstock, not only in the NBA, but all of sports. Rough start to the year, but they've been winning games here, and they're going to be in the postseason. And to me, clearly, Con Knipple is the Rookie of the Year over Cooper Flagg. That's not a Cooper Flagg slight at all. He's an unbelievable player. He's going to be an unbelievable player for a really long time. And again, I think he'll win championships throughout his time in the NBA. But as far as Rookie of the Year goes, I think to me it's pretty clearly Con Knipple. We'll talk about that. Also, some Bengals news to wrap out today's show. Cam Sample going to the 49ers. What does that mean for the Bengals? I think you knew they probably weren't going to hold on to him, bring him back. Ruben Bain, by the way, is meeting with the Bengals today. Met with the Chiefs yesterday, and he is going to have a meeting with Cincinnati today. Tom Pelissero and others reporting that for NFL Network. Could that be a potential Cincinnati Bengal at number 10 overall? Is he going to potentially be available for the Bengals to pick him there at that spot? We will discuss here on today's show, but appreciate everyone, as always, for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already. On our way to 23,000 subscribers here at Chatterbox Sports, which obviously is very exciting. Daily coverage, daily content here on the channel from our various shows. Got my morning show each and every day, Monday through Friday. Chatterbox Reds live in the 9th inning for every Cincinnati Reds game. Got some exciting weekend streams coming up with that series with Anaheim, Trace Fowler, Nick Kirby. Craig Sandlin, Mike Hart, Greg Kuffner, and others got you covered over there. Reed Mouse, Craig Sandlin, they recorded a Chatterbox Bengals podcast on Caleb Downs. We've obviously spent a great deal of time discussing Caleb Downs here on this particular show, but check that out if you haven't done so already. They're doing a little kind of specific player previews as we get closer to the NFL draft, which, by the way, round 1, we will be at Smoke Justice. Hope to see some of you all there, obviously, and hopefully the Bengals can execute at number 10 overall. Tonight, I will be in the booth in Dayton for the Dragons game. They are taking on Lake County. A little pro ball debut tonight. Reed Mouse was at it the past 2 nights. Did a great job, but we will be up in Dayton for this evening's ball game. Dragons and the Lake County captains. Certainly looking forward to that. But help us out. Follow us on social at CBox Sports. Follow me at StoneShields_. Follow the show at the Stone Shields. Like all of our stuff, like this stream if you're watching live on the show. And reminder, find the podcast, even if you're watching, listening live, and leave us a 5-star review. That really does go a long way and helps us build the podcast over there as well. We've seen some growth over the course of the past few weeks, which is exciting, but help us out with that podcast. Leave us a little message as well. That certainly goes a long way. A review. We've gotten a couple of those, but would love to add a couple more into the mix there as well. But appreciate everyone as always, and let's dive into the Cincinnati Redlegs. They got absolutely smacked around yesterday against Miami. They lose that ball game 8-1. I do think there are several important takeaways from the game. My biggest thing, just watching them specifically early in the game, looked kind of lethargic out there. Kind of looked like a team that was playing at like 11 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, it was noon, but 12:10 for an MLB first pitch obviously is relatively early. And, great city of Miami. Not sure if the fellas were out the night before, having a good time out in the town. Obviously, weren't able to do it yesterday after the ball game because they had to get back here to Cincinnati. So not quite sure. Maybe they enjoyed themselves Wednesday night, but for whatever reason, they did not look like they were 100% locked in, focused, and ready to go in that game. And I think you saw it with some sloppy plays defensively. Eugenio Suarez down at third base. I understand he's not playing there each and every day like he was his last time he was a part of the Cincinnati Reds team. But no Key Brian Hayes there at the hot corner, and there were several plays, particularly in the first inning, when Suarez just simply dropped the ball, right? And, at that point, it would have kept the game 0-0, which would have felt like a huge victory after the unbelievable catch from Dane Myers to start the game. Like what we've seen from Dane in center field. He rung his bell a little bit on the wall, and, of course, like the very next batter, he was tested again in left center. Definitely an easier play to make. Speaking of the 2 plays, kind of just bounced out of his glove there. I'm sure he would tell you that he should have made that play. But I feel good about Dane Myers in center field for the Cincinnati Reds. They had the runner on third base. Suarez had an opportunity to get a huge out, and he just kind of dropped the ball down there at third base. Later in the ball game, had an opportunity, more of a difficult play, a diving play, but certainly a play that a lot of us believe that Key Brian Hayes would have made. And Eugenio Suarez did not ultimately make that play. And that lethargic takeaway that I had really wasn't just the Reds, too. It was the Miami Marlins. And I think, again, that speaks to probably the start time of the game. They were booting some balls up the middle, had some issues. The third baseman for the Marlins, I thought, struggled immensely throughout the duration of the series. But it just wasn't a clean baseball game by any stretch. Rhett Lauder on the one, the Reds trying to turn 2. He's running over to cover first base. I thought Ellie did a tremendous job of understanding that, okay, I got the pitcher going over here. He's still got to get to the bag. Let me not just fire this thing 105 miles an hour over at first base. He gave him a good throw, and Rhett just simply dropped the baseball. So sloppy game, right? Again, I'm joking about them going out, but, early start time, 12:10. Have been playing a lot of games in a row, obviously on the road as well. I'm sure there was a fatigue element a little bit for the Reds, and that certainly is what it looked like, right? Because there was some sloppy plays, certainly. And, again, that was on both teams as well, just not Cincinnati. Rhett Lauder, he had been sensational going into this ball game. The Reds were perfect 2-0 when he was out there as the starting pitcher, which, by the way, they're 2-0 with Chase Burns as well. They hope to make that 3-0 tonight in Cincinnati. I'm not going to hit the panic button with him. if I had to freak out over one guy over the other, it would definitely be Brady Singer over Rhett Lauder, but I'm not freaking about him either. Singer's going to have some of those starts, and now you hope it's not 2 2/3 innings where he's giving up 10 hits, 6+ runs, but he's going to have some starts where he gets knocked around, and then he's going to go on stretches where he goes 3-4 straight outings, and it's like, wow, this guy looks like a really, really good pitcher. I think the top upside for a guy like Brady Singer is probably, a 3, and then the low side is definitely a 5, right? And, again, he's got to go longer than 2 2/3 innings like he did the other night, but you're going to get some off starts from Brady Singer. Are you going to get those kinds of off starts from Rhett Lauder? You hope not. I don't blame him for this game. He wasn't at his best, right? He definitely wasn't sharp. He got hit around a little bit. I do think it's worth mentioning that Miami, leading up to this series with Cincinnati, they were hitting the baseball pretty well. Shoot, Miami through the first week of the season, they were in first place in the East, so you saw their bats heat up a little bit at the end of the series. Again, Reds certainly made it a little bit easier on them. Guys missing with pitches, but I was impressed with the way that Rhett Lauder was able to battle through it and still get you some quality innings. As I mentioned, Brady Singer went 2 2/3 the day before. Your bullpen getting taxed a little bit. You can get an off day Monday, but you got to go right into this series with Anaheim. You hope your bullpen doesn't get worked throughout this series, but you needed Rhett to go out there and at least give you some innings. And I thought he did a nice job of that, even in a situation where it was kind of clear that the Reds probably weren't going to win the game, despite obviously some come-from-behind victories they've had this season. And, he gave you some innings. He continued to compete. I respect that. I appreciate that. The Reds are going to need for him to continue when it comes to that mindset there as well. But the bat's got to heat up, right? And, you got people in the fan base freaking out. Got Reed Mouse, Cubs fan, coming in here saying, oh, yeah, this Reds offense not very good. I'm looking at the record, right? This is not the Cincinnati Bengals where they played 17 games. So if they go out there and stink for 2 games in a row, we can sit here and sound the alarm and say, we're in trouble. This team's cooked. They're going nowhere fast. They're going to miss the playoffs, blow it all up, fire everybody. It's different with Major League Baseball. They play 162 games, and when I sit here, take a step back, and look at the team's record, I would have signed up for this 100%. You're a half game out from Milwaukee, and we've been playing now for a couple of weeks, sitting here on April 10th, right? I got no issue with where they're at as a team. If they continue to hit the baseball the way they're hitting it now, are they going to miss the playoffs? Yes, absolutely, 100%. We know this. It has to get better, but the road trip, overwhelming success. You sweep the Rangers, you split 2 out of 2 against Miami. Did it feel like it took the wind out of your sails a little bit, losing the last 2 games of the roadie? Sure, absolutely. Would you have loved to say, you know what, we won that series in Miami. We got 3 out of 4, right, as opposed to splitting it 2 and 2? Yes, absolutely. But you look at this team, you look at the record in which they've had, you look at how they're playing for the most part defensively, besides some throwing errors from Brady Singer and some misplays yesterday in the field, right? You feel good. Right, the pitching's been solid. The bullpen, I think, has been a little bit better than I anticipated, at least, and you absolutely would have signed up for this. On opening day, if I said the Reds would be exactly where they are as it relates to their record and as it relates to their placement in the NL Central here a couple weeks into the season, everybody out there with a working brain would have said, you know what, sign me up for that, and sign me up for how the road trip went as well. Now, doesn't mean we can't, talk, have some dialogue about the offense, because it's not good. Runners in scoring position continues to be an issue with this team. Reds, by the way, had the bases loaded in the first inning, and that was really their prime opportunity to do some damage against Meyer, the starter, who, by the way, I thought he just got better and better and better as the game went on. And that was kind of an opportunity for them to exploit him. Now, it was with 2 outs, and Lowe was up, and he wasn't able to, get a base knock to get some runs in, but that would have been a huge way, obviously, to start out the ball game. Reds weren't able to do that. Trace Fowler mentioned something on Chatterbox Reds that I completely agree to and want to point out. Basically, we can't go in there and just say, oh, the pitching, it was great. He made it real difficult on us, right? The pitching in this league is really good, right? And when you face Paul Skeens, yeah, you can go out there and say that. And it's no disrespect to the starter for Miami, but I don't want to hear, oh, yeah, this guy was just lights out. We couldn't really do anything. No, you need to score more than 1 run. South Stewart was the entire offense for the Cincinnati Redlegs yesterday, and he was for a lot of the series, to be honest. And he has been throughout the duration of the year, if we're just being completely honest here. So I don't, the narrative of, well, the guy was great, it's going to happen. The pitching in Major League Baseball is really, really good. That's not a news flash. I'm not breaking any news here. When you're not facing certainly an ace on a team, or not facing some of the best pitchers in the league, I don't want to hear that as an excuse, if we're being honest. So I'm not hitting the panic button, right? The Reds offense is not going to be worse than the Reds offense last year. It's just not going to be, right? And I don't know what the numbers are at this point. I'm sure it's relatively comparable as far as runs scored, right? As it relates to the rest of the major leagues, Reds aren't scoring many runs. A little bit different this year because when they are scoring runs, they're putting the ball over the fence. That wasn't the case last year. But the offense is going to be better. When we look at this thing after 162 games, and I'll even say when we look at this thing at the All-Star break, we're going to compare what's going on in 26 to what went on in 25, and we're saying, you know what, this is a heck of a lot better. So we can be concerned about it. We can say it needs to get better. We can say if it doesn't get better, you're going to miss the playoffs, but let's not sit here and act like it's going to be worse than last year, right? To me, that's just absolutely ridiculous. Couple of other takeaways that I have with this team right now. TJ Friedl, something Kirby and Trace Fowler have talked about at length here, but I kind of want to give my 2 cents here on this show. The leadoff spot in Major League Baseball has changed, right? I'm 25 years old. The leadoff guy and his role was not the same as it was when I was 7 or 8 years old. It's just not the case. It has changed specifically here in these past few seasons, where you're seeing a lot of these teams, a lot of these managers, and candidly, a lot of these front offices say, we're going to put our best hitter at number 1, or we're going to put our best hitter at number 2. TJ Friedl is a winning ball player, right? Is he a Hall of Famer? No. But he is in the big leagues for a reason, right? Kind of against all odds. I remember when he first came up, it's like, what's this guy with long hair doing out there? He has really carved himself a really nice opportunity. He's made the most of it, and he's been the starting center fielder for this team for several years now. He's not the best hitter on this team, right? And candidly, he's not a top 5, 6 hitter on this team, 7 hitter on this team. I understand you feel good about some of the speed he possesses, right? It's not Ellie De La Cruz speed. It's not even Matt McClain's speed either, but, he can get around the bases a little bit. You respect his awareness of the zone, right? I think that's important as a leadoff hitter. He's not going to be chasing stuff like Noelvi Marte or Eugenio Suarez. That's just way off the plate. You like his plate discipline. Obviously, you love the ability that he has to square around and bunt, whether it be for a sacrifice or flat out for a hit. Nobody does that better than TJ Friedl, but it's time to have a different guy in that spot. And it's not just because of the struggles he's had to this point. It's baseball. Slumps exist, right? He's off to a rough start. Is he going to bat like this throughout the duration of the year? I don't think so. But it's not just that has me have this takeaway, right? Ellie De La Cruz is the perfect guy to bat at number 1 in the lineup. He's the perfect guy. Now, the other side of that argument is, well, you got a perfect thing going at 3 and 4 with Ellie and Sal. Sal protecting him in the lineup. They're both hitting the ball relatively well and playing good baseball right now. You don't want to mess that up. Fair. But Ellie De La Cruz, to me, is the perfect guy. That's the guy you want to have the most at-bats, which is what your leadoff hitter does, right? When he gets on base, the guy can run, right? He can hit the ball over the fence, which he's done a few times this year. He can hit for singles as well, right? He is the full package, and that's the type of guy that I would want as the leadoff hitter in this lineup. You look around Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani. I get he's a unicorn, right? But is Shohei Ohtani your prototypical leadoff hitter 7, 8 years ago in Major League Baseball? No, right? Roman Anthony, we saw him in the opening series for Boston. Is he your prototypical leadoff hitter in Major League Baseball from 7, 8 years ago? No, he's not. You're seeing managers, front office, organizations put the best hitter, right, as that first guy in the lineup more times than not, right? Aaron Judge, typically number 2 for the Yankees, right? TJ Friedl is not that for the Reds. In the early 2000s, yeah, that's the type of leadoff hitter you would want, but adapt a little bit. And I think Tito's done a nice job of adapting a little bit to, how things have changed in Major League Baseball. People always say he's an old school guy, which, it's worked, right? The game, for the most part, is the same. We've changed a lot of different things, but it's still baseball at the end of the day. He's had a lot of success, obviously, in the early stages of his career. He's won a million games. We get that. But I would like to see him pivot off that a little bit. Let's just try somebody else out there. And this isn't a situation where I'm like, oh, full panic, TJ's in trouble, get him out of there. No, let's just let's just be open to the idea of trying somebody new there. And I think Matty McLean's bat there once this year. That would be another thing that I'd be looking to consider as well. Let's get McLean up there in that spot, a guy that can have a little bit more juice for you. And then, I think TJ's catching a lot of flack, certainly from the fan base. Not that the Reds or TJ necessarily care about that, and they shouldn't operate based on what the fans say. I totally agree with that. But take a lot of pressure off him. Right, if you just put him down there at 7 or 8 in the lineup, let him see some more fastballs settle in, right? Use some of that speed if he can get on, and then that's like having a leadoff hitter at the bottom of your order, right? And I think he would really be able to blossom into that role, if we're being completely honest. So I think it's time to look at an adjustment with TJ Friedl. I think it's time to bring him down in the lineup. Again, I'm not saying sit him on the bench. I'm not saying send him to AAA. I'm just saying take him out of that number 1 spot. Let's just try some things. Right, let's see what Matty McLean looks like up there. Let's see what Ellie looks like, even though they're not going to do that. Let's see what some of these other guys look like at number 1 and see if we can't catch a little something that works here. Because you got to switch some things up, right? Very happy with the record right now as far as wins and losses go, but the offensive output is not good enough. And if you're just going to sit there and you're Tito Francona and say, well, our record is, solid right now, so let's just keep it rolling with the same lineup. No. Right? That's not going to work because you're not going to be able to ride this wave forever, hitting the baseball the way you're hitting the baseball right now. It has got to improve. You have to flat out score more runs. I would like to see some adjustments be made because, again, it's early. It's April 10th, but also it's not just the first series in Boston. Like, we've played some baseball here. We've got some data to look at over the course of the past few weeks. Let's make a few lineup adjustments and kind of go from there. Sal Stewart. Guy's unbelievable. Chris Welsh came on the show a couple of months ago. I asked him about Sal Stewart because you hear about these prospects, right? How many times have you heard about some prospect in AAA or some kid that you draft? Like, oh, this guy's the next great thing. This guy's going to be awesome. This guy's going to be here for 10, 15 years and help us win baseball games and help us put fans in the seats at our ballpark. Like, sometimes you hear it and you're like, all right, you know what, we'll see. You roll your eyes a little bit and you go from there. Obviously, we got a taste last few weeks of the season of what Sal Stewart could potentially do. And then you're reading stuff in the offseason about NL Rookie of the Year, and this guy's going to be unbelievable, and this guy should get a fat contract. I'm asking Chris Welsh about him, and he goes, the kid can flat out hits. And that sentence just cycles through my mind every time that I see Sal Stewart at the dish for Cincinnati. He is by no means a one-trick pony. He can do it all, right? I'm not going to sit here and compare him to Joey Votto at this point in his career, but there are some elements of his game that resemble what Joey was able to do at the dish. He felt good about Joey in any count, right? 0-2, 3-0, 3-2. Early in the ball game, late in the ball game, you always felt good about Joey. You understood that Joey was going to use the entirety of the field, right? He wasn't just going to pull the ball. He just wasn't going to, in Joey's case, obviously, as a lefty, work to right field. Sal's not just going to work to left field, right? Some of Sal's best at-bats and best moments of this year have been shooting the ball backside with a little inside-out swing that reminds me of Derek Jeter. But the thing is, he's got more power than Derek Jeter, and he's leaving the ballpark and hitting the ball off the wall to that side of the field. The power to straightaway center we saw in the game last night, that ball was absolutely crushed to straightaway center field. And he's not just a guy that's only power. We've seen singles from him. We've seen clutch moments from him. We've seen him draw walks as well, which obviously you need to do at that number 4 overall spot. So I was excited about Sal coming into the year, but again, you kind of have heard this as a baseball fan, regardless of what team you support, about, oh, this guy's going to come in and be some great player, and you're like, all right, let's see it at the big league level. And again, we saw it a little bit at the end of last year with Sal, but he comes in and Tito's like, yeah, he's batting 4. Right? So I'll be honest, I thought he was going to be batting 5, 6, or 7, and he's sitting up there in that 4 spot, and he clearly is the best hitter on this team right here, right now. Is he going to be able to ride this wave throughout the duration of the year? Probably not, if we're being honest, right? There's going to be some highs, there's going to be some lows, but at this point, he is in a position where I'm saying the kid can flat out hit, number 1, and number 2, let's lock this guy up for the long term, and it's something that Nick and Trace have talked about. I've certainly thought about as well. He's a lot different of a player than Elly De La Cruz, right? As good as Sal Stewart is and as great as I think he can be, he's not Elly De La Cruz, right? The marketability is a little bit different. Like, that's the thing about Elly, right? Even if he doesn't really touch his full ceiling here in Cincinnati, like New York or LA is just going to be, drooling in the mouth about potentially getting their hands on a guy like Ellie as far as the marketability in a town like that in New York or Los Angeles, right? And then the speed, the power, the defense now. I mean, my goodness, Ellie's looked really good defensively at shortstop this year. But point being is, like I'd say right now, Sal is a better player for the Reds over the course of the year to this point than Ellie. I don't know what the WAR says right now, but that's just kind of what my gut tells me. But is he, have a higher ceiling than Ellie? Is he going to be a better player than Ellie? Probably not. So point being, I get why Ellie De La Cruz's people said, yeah, turn down that contract from Cincinnati. Right? We don't need to do that right now. Let's kind of bet on ourselves here, and we'll kind of address this as the years go on. I think it's a little bit different with Sal. I think if the Reds sat down there and kind of said 10 years, here's all this money. I mean, we just saw it with Pittsburgh and Connor Griffin. He'd been in the league for a week, and they said, yep, we're all in with you as our shortstop going forward. And something Reed Mouse has talked about, when you're a small market team, right, and we'll see how things change with the CBA obviously coming up. But for now, if you're a small market team, you have to operate this way because you can't get in bidding wars with some of these other teams. You got to pay your guys early, right? The Rays did it with Wander Franco, which that went sideways for off-the-field purposes. But as far as a baseball perspective, in the short term for them, it worked out. And then obviously that hit the fan. But, Connor Griffin, that's what the Pittsburgh Pirates are doing at this point. They're rolling the dice a little bit. Roman Anthony, we've seen the dice be rolled there. Obviously, he looks to be a superstar, but you got some weird stuff going on in the field to this point in the year for Roman Anthony. But Sal Stewart's the guy to me where it's like, let's sit down and let's have that conversation. Nick Kirby's brought up the point of, well, you might be a little bit late there. You might want to give it a few weeks for him to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. You could have done it earlier, but now he's like put together a couple weeks here where he's, really hitting the cover off the baseball and really looks like your best hitter up at the dish. Like maybe let's wait it out a little bit, get that number down perhaps by a margin. But he's a guy that I would throw that contract to, and I do think there is a good chance that he would take that deal. Right? I do think there's a good chance that he would take that deal. It's a little bit different with Ellie because Ellie's ceiling is the best player in baseball. Right, and you might laugh and roll your eyes at that. I'm aware Shohei Ohtani plays the game, but I think that's Ellie's ceiling. Whereas, Sal is a really good player. Like, he could be an all-star, right? Potentially an MVP candidate. But best player in baseball, I'm not quite sure that is his ceiling, especially with some of the limitations to this point defensively. I have belief that he can get it figured out, but defensively and offensively are, not even close right now for Sal Stewart. So, I don't know. But I personally would be in a situation where I would throw him a lot of cash and try to lock him up for the long term, right? Try to lock him up for the long term. We've been talking about who Joey Votto's replacement's going to be down at first base. There were people that thought it was CES. Obviously, he just got DFA'd. It's not going to be him. I think there's a world where it definitely could be Sal Stewart. A couple other things with the Reds offensively. Spencer Steer's hitting the ball better. I know you look at the average and you're like, okay. But he's been having more productive at-bats. He's always been a guy that's going to fight off pitches, foul off pitches, see a lot of pitches, extend his at-bats. He's hit the baseball hard. Had a couple of hits yesterday, which not both of those were hit hard. But I'm pleased with how Spencer has developed over the course of this year, and I think he's going to be a guy that you can rely on at the bottom of your order. And that's the difference between the Reds this year and the Reds last year. Is before it was like, all right, Spencer, we need you, right? You're in the middle of our lineup. You got to do damage. Now, if you're a bottom third guy, and if he can produce at some of the levels that he has for this team earlier in his career, all of a sudden that is even incredibly more valuable with what you have at 3 and 4 with Ellie and, of course, Sal Stewart as well. But they've asked him to play a little bit of right. They've asked him to play a little bit of left. I give him credit, man, because he's just like, you know what, I'll do what I got to do to be in the lineup, play in the big leagues. And he's done a great job. Again, the average at this point, not great. But I've been really impressed with his development this year and some of the at-bats that he's had and as he's been able to piece together additionally as well. So excited for what Spencer Steer could potentially do for this team this year, and I think that opens up a whole different level for their offense. And obviously he's going to have to be, right, especially considering that, past couple of days, or no, I shouldn't even say that. The whole year to this point, the offense has come in spurts, and frequently they're only scoring a handful of runs. Remember the game the other night where it's like the Reds scored 7 runs, lost 7-4, Game 3 against Miami. And it's like at this point, it's like you'll take 4 runs from the Cincinnati Reds, and obviously gave up 7 in that game and weren't able to win. But like at this point, I don't think you can expect to score 7-8 runs, right, and kind of get in a high-scoring battle with some of these other teams. You're going to have to be able to get to that point if you want to be a postseason team. But for now, it just doesn't really feel like that is necessarily attainable. But Spencer Steer is going to be critical for this team over the course of the next few weeks and months. Chase Burns gets the ball tonight against the Angels. Angels off to a better start than maybe some people expected, but this is a series where you should win 2 out of 3. You get the off day on Monday, you get the Giants. That's a series you should win 2 out of 3, right? I think everybody in Cincinnati, if you're a fan watching over the course of the next couple of series, 4 of 6 is the goal, right? 3 of 6, you're not freaking out, and you're not really freaking out regardless unless you lose all 6 of them. But 4 of 6 should absolutely be the goal, and to keep this thing rolling, because the schedule is going to get more difficult. Before long, you're going to be seeing the Milwaukee Brewers pop up on that schedule. You're going to be seeing the Chicago Cubs pop up on that schedule, who are off to a slow start, but they'll probably get it going here at some point. And that's going to be, more difficult than facing teams like the Marlins and the Giants and the Angels. So it's going to be critical for this team to pick up some wins here over the course of the next few weeks. And we'll see. Good that they're going to be back home. City Kinetix, by the way, debut on Saturday. It'll be interesting. The reason why, like if you're asking me what's cooler, the ones that they've had, the black ones or the red ones, the black ones are definitely cooler, right? But also I'm aware that their name is literally the Cincinnati Reds. So it kind of makes sense that there's going to be a lot of red. Is it a little extra red? Is it a little bit too much red? We'll see. We'll see ultimately when we see them on Saturday. But I'm not, I like looking at the uniforms. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's not cool. But I'm not going to get all worked up about it, right? I think the Fountain Square patch is a very nice touch. And I like how they kept the C the same. And hopefully they can have success in those uniforms. That's really all I'm worried about. Can they have some success in those City Kinetix? So we'll see how they look, right? We've seen the pictures, obviously, but until you see them out there on the diamond playing in a real game, you kind of can't really get a full takeaway there. But they will debut against the Los Angeles Angels on Saturday. Fellas, got you covered tonight with Chatterbox Reds. All right, the Masters is well underway. And I was watching a lot of the tournament yesterday. Rory McIlroy, Everett Henry, he's here. He's in the chat. I got to talk about Rory. Everett, this is your moment. I'm talking about Rory McIlroy right now. I tip my hat, right? He played great golf yesterday. Didn't have it fully for the first, 5 to 8 holes, and then that finish was impressive. That was a clean card there towards the back end of that round. I only had the 1 bogey for McIlroy as well. And I'm aware of what I said. I said that I would be surprised if he was even able to finish in the top 10. It's one round, so I'm not going to fully pivot off that yet. He reaped the benefits of going in the morning yesterday. He doesn't shoot 5 deep. If he's playing in the afternoon yesterday, the wind really picked up and was a much more difficult golf course. We will see if that proves true again this afternoon on Friday at the Masters. But there is something to be said about Rory and that weight being off his shoulders for Rory McIlroy, right? And that becomes very, very dangerous. There is no denying he's one of the best players in the world. I think we can just say he's the second best player in the world, right? Not named Scotty Scheffler. He is the best golfer in the world. And if he's moving around that property with confidence, right, there is no reason for him to have that anxiety. He's going to have nerves, right? It's the Masters, and if he's in contention on Sunday, he's going to have nerves, but it's not going to be the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's not going to be the anxiety. He knows in the back of his mind that, when they're done playing golf on Sunday, he's going to go get his green jacket, right, and put that thing on, right? So I think that was something that really weighed on him when he heard Rory speak. It was all about the relief that he felt. And if he wins this year, it's not going to be relief. It's going to be joy, and he is going to be completely fired up. But you just saw it, and it's been well documented. He throws the putter up. He kind of crumples down to his knees, so lets out a big yell. It was just, you literally saw it coming off of his shoulders, all the pressure, all the heartbreak from 10-plus years there at that tournament, and I give him credit for that. But he can become dangerous, right? I will say, I did not expect him to place well this year, but obviously an incredible round on Thursday, and if he can just go out there and be Rory, right? Because when he's just out there being Rory, he's one of the best there is, right? And there isn't that additional pressure of, oh, my God, I got to get it done. Everyone keeps asking me about getting it done. I've wanted this since I was a kid. He already got it done, right? So if he's in the mix on Sunday, I think you're going to see a different Rory McIlroy and maybe not a guy that kind of folds, which is obviously what had been the story of his career at majors over the course of the past, decade or so. Before that, obviously, he was winning a bunch of them, doing a great job, winning all these tournaments at a young age. But I do think that he can become a very, very dangerous player because there just isn't that pressure, right? There's the pressure of winning again and being, the third guy or fourth guy to do it back-to-back. I get that, but that doesn't compare to the pressure he felt last year, right? Not at all. Xander, I just thought it was a really good opening round from him. Just 70, 2 under, made some bogeys there on the back, but that's a really good score. Anytime you're in the red numbers, right? That first round at Augusta, I think put you really in a good spot. That was my pick. I feel good about going into it Friday. But again, that's the story, right? Because you look at the top of the leaderboard after conclusion of play yesterday, it wasn't like you saw a ton of guys up there that were in afternoon tea time. Rose played really well like he always does. Kind of came off at the end. He was struggling before we came on here live a little bit to fully get it going. But it was a lot of morning tea times up there. And we'll see if that looks the same. If some of these guys, like if Rory can go out there and do that again on a Friday afternoon, assuming the wind picks up again, that's serious. If ultimately, at the end of the day, he is able to do that. Sam Burns, nobody talking about him, an impressive 5 under round as well. He puts himself in a position where he's tied with Rory. He's a really good player. Obviously looking to break through with a major, but he's won tournaments before. Scotty's best friend, so he's been around that. He understands what that ambiance and pressure and just what it's like to win because, he's done it a few times, but he's also seen his best friend do it at the highest level in Scotty Scheffler. For a guy that's tied for the lead and shot 67 on the first day, I feel like not a lot of people are really talking about Sam Burns, and we'll see if he can put it together with an impressive performance today. Jordan Spieth on the course. I thought Spieth is hitting the ball really well. He's always going to give himself an opportunity here at this property. I've never really seen him lag putt this bad. The bogey that he made on 15 was insane. That hole, by the way, is so difficult. I would make a 18 on that hole. But his second shot, he purposely hit it in the bunker, which I think you're going to see that from several guys throughout the week. And it's a long bunker shot for Jordan Spieth with lots of green to work with. I'm sitting there thinking, he might hole it, right? He's probably going to make 4. And just couldn't even get it going. And then he 3-putts. Had a horrible 3-putt on the second hole today as well. So when we came on, he was 1 under through 4, birdied 1, had a great opportunity on 2 to make birdie, 3-putted there, and then had a little kick in on 3 and just did not commit to the stroke there. So if he can get the putter going, I think he has a chance. He was one of my guys going into this week, certainly from a top 10, top 20 finish perspective as well, but he's got to get that putter going, right? Because when he was, winning this tournament and contending in this tournament, he was, borderline making everything he looked at, especially around these grounds, and that has not been the case at all this week, but he finds himself certainly within striking distance. Saw a stat this morning. The LIV guys on Thursday's round beat the Champions Tour guys by like 2 shots. Like when you add up everybody from the LIV and everybody from the Champions Tour, they beat him by like 1 or 2 shots. And Fred Couples played amazing, but he made a 9 on 15. Which kind of sent them back a little bit. But, people making fun of me and my comments about LIV, I think that tells the story a little bit there. John Rahm, whoever's like, he's going to come in here and might win this thing. He's going to be fighting for his life to make the cut, which my money would probably be on him and Bryson bouncing back and finding themselves in a position where they can play the weekend. But, yeah, awful starts for them. And, I thought it was a difficult first day. You didn't have a ton of guys up there. It's not like anybody went out there and shot that like 64, 65, right? 67, leading it 5 under, and just not a ton of guys under par. It's very difficult. Not only the pressure of it being the Masters, but the course is really, really hard, and those greens are really, really hard. And once it dried out there in the afternoon, the wind was picking up. It's just an unbelievably difficult place to play. So as a fan, I'm just rooting for it to be close throughout the duration of the tournament and the weekend. I think there's a part of you that thinks, Rory could go out there and do that again and really separate himself from the field. But just hoping for a great tournament the rest of the way. I love what Xander was able to do in round 1. I would expect Oberg to bounce back a little bit. He got off to a hot start, but then kind of mishit some shots there coming in, made some bogeys. I would expect him to dial it in a little bit. Cam Young got off to a horrible start, but got it back to 1 over par. If you're at that 1 over mark from your Thursday round, I think you got a chance. And even at 2 over, nobody's really out of the tournament besides like Bobby Mack, people down there at the bottom. But like if you fired like a 2 over on Thursday, like you're still very much in the mix. And it's one day, right? So we can have this conversation. Well, I guess we won't because we won't have a show over the weekend, but gets a little bit smaller, certainly going into Saturday. But still, after one round, you just don't want to shoot yourself completely out of the tournament. I think 2 over, maybe even 3 over on that first round is still in a spot where they could potentially win the tournament. So excited to see what Rory's going to be able to do. Excited once we get off here to watch Jordan Spieth and Scotty Scheffler and see what they can be able to do. But if nobody goes really low, that you just know Scotty's going to be a factor on Sunday. And even if somebody goes low, it'll probably be a factor as well. But just, not making mistakes. There's so many mistakes to be made out here on this course, and Scotty just doesn't make them, right? He's not making a ton of birdies right now, but he's also not making a ton of mistakes, and that's a recipe to be in contention on Sunday. And obviously, if you're in contention Sunday at the Masters, anything can happen. Some NBA conversation before we move on here on today's show, but before that, we do need to give a shout out to our good friends over at QC Kinetix. If knee pain or shoulder pain is slowing you down, slowing down your performance, whether it be on the golf course, the pickleball court, or even in the gym, talk to the care team at QC Kinetix Cincinnati about regenerative medicine options. Learn more at QCkinetix.com or call 513-655-3356. The team over there is absolutely incredible. They have a location in Liberty Township right across from Lakota East High School. The folks at QC Kinetix bring a different approach with regenerative medicine, and you don't have to be an athlete if you're just a weekend warrior here in Cincinnati dealing with back pain or trying to get ready for golf season. They can help. Check out the team at QC Kinetix and see what they're all about. Again, visit QCkinetix.com or call 513-655-3356. QCkinetix.com or call 513-655-3356. And be sure to tell them that we sent you. Today's show is also made possible by our friends over at 78 Cigars. Cincinnati legend Anthony Munoz has a new venture, and we're fired up to partner with it here at the Stone Shield Show, introducing 78 Cigars, a premium cigar line from the Hall of Famer himself. If you love great cigars and Cincinnati football history, this is the perfect combination. You can grab 78 Cigars right now at both Montgomery and locations, the original in Montgomery, and of course the Boathouse downtown and over at Creekside Cigar Company. Or check them out online. Just head to anthonymunoz.com and click on the 78 Cigars page. Learn more and order today. That's 78 Cigars from the greatest offensive lineman to ever do it, Anthony Munoz. Some dialogue around Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg as it relates to the NBA Rookie of the Year. Very much a two-horse race, has been for much of the year. I am a Cooper Flagg guy. I like both these guys a lot. I'm not a Duke guy. Did I fall in love with that Duke team a little bit in the tournament last year? Yeah, I did. A little bit. That was a fun team with Shire leading the way and obviously had a big-time lead in the Final Four against Houston. Kelvin Sampson came roaring back and stole that game a couple of years ago. But Cooper Flagg is an unbelievable player. What he has been able to accomplish this year as a teenager is absolutely insane. I believe that Cooper Flagg will be a multiple-time All-Star, and I believe he will be able to bring a championship to Dallas. He is that good, right? He can shoot, he can facilitate, he can defend, and he doesn't take possessions off, which in the NBA, that says lots, right? I get he's a teenager, feels like he has a lot to prove, but he is out there full go at all times. He has a will to win. He has a competitive spirit about him as well, and he is just a dangerous player on the basketball court. Con Knipple, also a really good player. We all knew he could shoot the lights out at Duke. We all knew he had some athleticism there at Duke. I'll be honest, he has surprised me a little bit with how good he is in the NBA. Charlotte is a much better team than Dallas, right? And Con isn't the best player on Charlotte. Obviously, he's playing with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, who clearly is their star. But Charlotte's not in this position without Con Knipple. Right, and they got out to a horrid start this year, and then towards the middle of the year, they were winning games left and right, and they're going to be a postseason team. We'll see if they can do anything in the playoffs. But to do that with a franchise like the Charlotte Hornets, right, for much of my life, like we talk about the Browns and make fun of the Browns, right, like the Rockies now in baseball are just terribly awful. But when I think about some of the worst organizations throughout the course of my life and just some of the laughingstock organizations of all the sports, I think the Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, it was the Charlotte Bobcats before that. And what they've been able to do, turning that around here this year and getting hot the way that they have, and him being such a focal point reason why that's been the case, him shooting it from the outside, him facilitating, him defending, him getting to the rim as well. Like, This isn't a Luke Kennard player, which that's no disrespect to Luke Kennard. Obviously, a local guy, he's great. But Luke Kennard is a throw me the ball on the outside and I'm going to shoot it, and it likely will go in, but that's about it from Luke Kennard, right? Much more complete player for Con Knipple, and I think there was some people that kind of compared the two. Obviously, Kennard's a lefty and Con is not, but he is more than just a shooter, right? He is a basketball player, and he's a dog too. And just because Cooper Flagg is averaging a couple of more points per game, you're thinking that it's going to go to Flagg instead of Knipple when Flagg's on a team that is clearly tanking for a lottery pick, that they're giving away, players, and they have no interest in winning right now. I get he was the number 1 overall pick. I get he's going to be unbelievable. I get that the NBA has been starving for a domestic star, and they got one. Because you look at all the stars in this league, and you think about the direction of the association once LeBron and Steph are gone and KD are gone, you're like, what are they going to do? Because Wemby's great, and he speaks good English, and I give him a lot of credit for that. He's great. I got no issues with Wemby, but it's like, the NBA needs a domestic guy to really step up here. Once LeBron and Steph and these guys are gone, they've got one. It is Cooper Flagg. You don't just need to give him the Rookie of the Year because of that, right? His team is awful. He's on a tanking team. You got a guy that's on a team in Charlotte that has a great story, that is a focal point to their success, that's averaging a couple of points less per game, but also he's playing with better players and not getting as many shots as a guy like Cooper Flagg. To me, it is clearly Con Knipple as the Rookie of the Year here in 2026 in the NBA. I think I looked this morning, and Knipple is now the favorite. It's very close. Con was minus 130. Cooper was plus 100. But looking over the course of the past few weeks, it had been Cooper Flagg as the favorite, even as early as I think earlier this week perhaps. He was the favorite as well, and that to me was just very hard to wrap my head around, right? I get it. He is unbelievable. I am a Cooper Flagg guy. He is going to win a championship. He is going to go to All-Star games each and every year. He's going to be your domestic superstar, right? He doesn't deserve the award over Con Knipple. His team's awful, right? His team's clearly tanking, right? He's getting way more shots and way more opportunities to score points, and he's only averaging a couple of more than Con. The story in Charlotte's unbelievable. They got some fun guys on that team, and we'll see if they can do anything in the postseason or not. But what a turnaround for the Hornets, and Con Knipple has really been spearheading that. Cincinnati Bengals. They met with Ruben Bain, or they're meeting with Ruben Bain today, which is cool. Yeah, these 30 visits for all these teams. I think, does this mean much? No, it shows you that the Bengals are interested in Ruben Bain and his potential services here in Cincinnati, which my takeaway would be, good, you should be, right? Really good player. Oh, he's got short arms. Ruben Bain's going to be a good player in the National Football League. I'm not going to sit here and say he's for sure going to be some great guy that's 15-plus sacks every year. I'm not going to say that. Ruben Bain is a top 10 pick. Right, I feel confident saying that. And if he's available at 10 and Styles and Downs are gone, you run to the board and you put in Ruben Bain. And ultimately you draft him. So he met with Kansas City yesterday, meeting with the Cincinnati Bengals today. That, to me, is going to be fascinating. We've had long talks about the draft. Again, Chatterbox Bengals, the crew, they've been putting out great content, kind of player-specific stuff here over the course of the past few weeks. They had a Caleb Downs video go out yesterday. Check that out if you haven't done so already. We will really dive in fully to the draft and the beast next week. Looking forward to doing that. We will have Joe Goodberry on. We had him on before free agency, which was great. That content did really, really well. Looking forward to having him back on for the NFL draft and fully diving in. But, I had kind of talked about the nightmare scenario before, and this was like right as the season was ending. I don't know if that necessarily exists anymore for Cincinnati, because I've talked myself into the fact that one of the corners is probably going to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I haven't really had to talk myself into it. I know Duke Tobin would love to take one of those two corners, and, am I a little bit worried about the medical of a guy like Jermod McCoy? Sure, right? He didn't play last year. He had an ACL. That's not ideal, right? But the Bengals would love to have him, just the type of player he is from a trait perspective and an athleticism perspective. Played in the FCC, all things they love. But it'll be interesting to see if somebody does fall. There's going to be a surprise, right? We've sat here, we've talked about the draft for weeks and months, and we're really about to amp up our draft coverage here at the show. But there's going to be a surprise. There's going to be some guy that goes in the top 10 where we all go, whoa, didn't see that coming. And if we get one of those, not even two, not three, if we just get one surprise in the top 9, there is going to be a stud available at 10 for Cincinnati that isn't necessarily one of the corners. One of the corners is going to be there regardless, right? If it's chalk and we got, all these guys going and maybe even the tackles don't go, there will still be one of those corners available at 10. But I think there is going to be a shock. I don't know who's going to do it, whether it be New Orleans, whether it be Kansas City, whether it be Washington, whether it be Cleveland, right? I mean, Cleveland might mess around and take a punter or something at 6. I don't know. Just kidding. The Giants at 5, the Titans at 4, right? The Jets at 2, the Cardinals at 3. Could they trade out of that with another team that comes in and takes, a different player than maybe we're sitting here thinking? We all know what's going to happen at 1, obviously, with Mendoza. But I think 2 to 9, there will be something that happens that we all go, oh! And that's going to make it possible for a really, really good player that isn't one of the corners. And I really like the corners available for Cincinnati at number 10. But ultimately, we will see. They lost Cam Sample. I think Brian Asamoah is the only Bengals free agent left that we don't know where he's going yet or if he ultimately is coming back. But Cam Sample was a guy that I really liked for Cincinnati. His role was definitely a rotational guy. And unfortunately for him, I think when he popped his Achilles a couple of years ago, he just never really looked the same. Like he had the same, burst in his step, didn't have that same quickness off the edge. But, I really liked him as a draft pick. I'm not going to call him a bust at all. I think he was a later round draft pick. It's not like you took him in the first, second, or third round. But he is going to sign with San Francisco, which that's an edge rusher to San Francisco. Joey Bosa, I believe, unless I'm living under a rock here, is still available. Could that be something Cincinnati taps into? Probably not. But I do believe Bosa's available, and it kind of felt like there was a foregone conclusion there that he was going to be joining his brother in San Francisco. Not to say Cam Sample signing puts the end to that, but that is another edge rusher in that room for San Francisco, so it'll be interesting to see if that potentially changes what they're doing at all as it comes to that. Do want to give a shout-out to our good friends over at Sharefax Credit Union. The Stone Shield Show is brought to you by Sharefax Credit Union. Sharefax is a not-for-profit financial institution owned by its members that returns earnings to them through lower fees and better rates in addition to traditional banking options. You can apply for membership at www.sharefax.org if you live in one of our 12 counties. Just like the rest of Cincinnati, Sharefax is fired up for baseball season and is ready to experience all the highs and lows together with the Chatterbox community. Sharefax Credit Union, insured by NCUA. Also got a partnership with Homage. Chatterbox Sports is proud to partner with Homage. We've got a special deal for you. The first 100 listeners get 20% off site-wide. That includes all the great T-shirts, sweatshirts, and everyday gear you see. Just note a few exclusions to apply, like some of the starter jackets and New Heights gear. Their Reds collection's awesome. Their Bengals collection's awesome. They got a Bearcat collection as well, even some Miami University swag that you can get. Best part about Homage, as I always say, yeah, it's cool, but it's also really, really comfortable as well. So you can wear it going out, hanging out with your buddies, hanging out with your family, going out to a restaurant, going to get some lunch at a bar, what have you. Or you're just posted up on the couch chilling. That works as well. To get your 20% off, use promo code Chatter at checkout. Just go to homage.com/Cbox. That's CHATTER at homage.com/Cbox. That'll do it for this edition of the show. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Let's see. Got anything going on here in the comment section? We'll see what's going on here at Augusta. Ultimately, if some of these guys that really struggled on Thursday are going to be able to battle back. Bryson, Cam Young got it back to 1 over. Can he get back in this tournament? Not seeing any adjustments really at the top of the leaderboard as we're looking at this live. Jordan Spieth looks like he is still 1 under par through 7. Very much in striking distance, but some of the guys at the top of that leaderboard are getting ready to tee off here. Rory McIlroy in a couple hours. He will tee off at 1:44. But enjoy the golf this weekend. Enjoy the Redlegs playing baseball this weekend back at home. If you can get out to the ballpark, absolutely go do it. In the great city of Cincinnati. Hopefully they can pick up at least 2 wins in this series with Anaheim. And hopefully it all starts tonight with Chase Burns continuing to shove and just bringing electricity to the ballpark. That would be awesome. I will be in Dayton tonight, joining Tom Nichols in the broadcast booth for the Dragons game. They're taking on Lake County. Looking forward to that. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the golf. Enjoy the baseball. And until Monday, take care, everybody.